Welcome to Test the Truth with myself, William Conville. I'm going to start today off with Hero of the Week. 2 years from now on. My Hero of the Week and Zero of the Week. So, Hero of the Week is Mr. Jim Brewer, comedian, very funny comedian from America, Long Island. Yep, my Hero of the Week. If you had checked my very first video out when I sent the message out, talk shit in my car about boycotting venues and concerts and stuff like that, which I'm holding firm on. Not be to a concert, I'll not be to any venue that brings in vaccine passports, I'll not be to any gig or music venue that is requiring any sort of vaccination status or testing for it as well. Miss out, I don't care. I've won a year and a half without it, and I've had a lifetime of seeing them, so no bother to me. But what I called for in that was friends, family, your friends, your family, your work colleagues to stick together and boycott these places, because if they're not selling their product, people are not turning up, they'll be forced to change the rules and regulations, part of the people and all that. But it doesn't seem to have had the effect that I would have hoped it had, even in my circles. Each to their own, but you keep conforming, and what's coming down the line is not worth thinking about, although I don't see any way of stopping it. So, and they know that, and that's the article I'll go into in a minute. That's why they're going to segregate us more than they've ever done before in this country. Anyway, Jim Brewer, Hero of the Week. Come on, Jim. Cancels clubs requiring vaccination proof. It's segregation. That's it. Summed up in a nutshell. Normally people, human rights and political parties would be jumping on the bandwagon to say, but no, it's whatever suits the narrative for a minute. Anyway, Jim Brewer's taking shots at the COVID jab as he announces cancellations of shows and venues which require proof of vaccination. The policy is government-sanctioned segregation, he says, according to the former Saturday Night Live cast member best known as Go Boy. The Long Island native took to Facebook Live to drop the bombshell over the weekend. Two quick updates on shows that you may think you may be getting tickets to, or you already have tickets to. The Wellmount Theatre in New Jersey, not doing it, he said. Brewer54 said in the 22-minute broadcast it's now trending on Twitter. Also, the Royal Oak Theatre in Michigan. Due to the segregation of them forcing people to show up with vaccinations, I am not doing these shows, he added. I know I'm going to sacrifice a lot of money, but I'm not going to be enslaved to the system or money. The funny guy emphasised that vaccination is a choice. Thank you, Jim, well said. And has decided to cancel bookings at venues that don't align with his values. Just sounds like I'm spurting right out of my own brain, out of my own mouth, and into the air. If you have anything else to say, I honestly don't care, Brewer said. Due to I have to stick to my morals. I have to stick to what I know is right. That's all anything's ever based down to. Your morals, your principles, wrong and right. It's simple. There's no grey area. He alleged that guests are being forced and bribed into vaccination by venues which he believes are being held hostage by pro-vax lawmakers. Round of applause. Salute. Hat tip. Standing ovation. Take a bow, son. Take a bow, Jim Brewer. Brilliant. We need more people like this. Unfortunately, at the minute, they're few and far between. But New York is crazy, and I can't commend them enough for standing up to it. I wish the artists and comedians and places I like to eat and drink would come out and make a firm stance on this. I really would. So from Hero of the Week to Zero of the Week. Article in the Belfast Tripe. Yes, that's right. You heard it, the Belfast Tripe. This ass clown was a disgrace. But to be fair to him, at least he's come out and hung his hat, where the rest of the politicians cleverly use words that make you think that they're against this, but when you read the small print, they're not. They're leaving it open. That's why when I say test the truth, that's what we should, because their narrative is always a headline grabber. But when you read the small print, it's not what they say at all, or believe. But at least Colum Eastwood, the ass clown of all clowns, well, not of all of them, but up in that clown show of our politics and politicians who storm out, they're a disgrace. He's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. But at least he's hung his mast out. SDLP leader Colum Eastwood calls for vaccine passports for pubs and restaurants, and I wonder why. Colum, we bit of a conflict of interest there, which I will go into. My view is we have to do it because if we don't, we're going to be in lockdown again. Nobody wants that. Well, I think you've been prepping us for lockdown for long enough, and I don't think it's going to matter. I think you're going to slip it in there one way or another, unless we stop complaining. So let's have a look at this ass clown statement. Disgraceful words coming out of his dirty little mouth. SDLP leader Colum Eastwood has called for COVID-19 vaccine passports to be introduced for entry into pubs and restaurants in Northern Ireland. He also backed the vaccines being made compulsory for staff workers in hospitals and care homes. What an absolute disgrace. A disgrace. I'll address the hospitals and care homes later on in the video, but disgrace. It's just shameful. It's an absolute shame. But the pubs and restaurants, one is the interesting one. Because Mr. Eastwood has a conflict of interest here. So he does. Because his wife runs 2 dairy pubs. When asked by BBC host, the biggest bloke in the country, who had he consulted with in the hospitality industry before making the call, Mr. Eastwood referenced speaking to his wife Rachel. Oh, isn't that a coincidence? Who runs 2 dairy pubs? My wife is in the hospitality business, so I know it very well, he said. Mr. Eastwood went on to claim he has also spoken to others in the industry. Well, is that right, Mr. Eastwood? Because the Belfast Telegraph article says Hospitality Ulster claims no consultation on the SDLP vaccine passport plan. As Eastwood says, he spoke to wife and others. So they're calling you out in that. Was calling you a liar, more or less. But you've only quoted that you spoke to your wife and others. So does him and his wife know something else that's coming down the line, or is their businesses being hit, which means a hit on the income in the household? I'll address that again further on down the video. But again, there's a conflict of interest. Mr. Eastwood's calling for passports for pubs, clubs and the hospitality and restaurants because maybe his wife's business is being hit by it. Well, on my personal experience, that's what I see in any pub or restaurant that I've been attending. Mr. Eastwood said, my view is we have to do it because if we don't, we're going to be in lockdown again. Nobody wants that. Yeah, I'm sure we're really not going to have that on the table anyway, are we? He has since, wink wink, he has since written to the First and Deputy First Ministers urging them to introduce COVID passes for hospitality and entertainment venues. I just can't get over that. Why are you writing to them for? You're sitting in a room with them, having your scones and cream and tea, and then after he's making an announcement, getting a nice wee posing photograph to put out till Belfast Tribe, or the Telegraph or the BBC, which are all sitting around a table talking. He's not making decisions there. We are talking about stuff and then going, I'm going to send you a letter about that. I'll send you an email about that. You're paid to make tough decisions in that room and you're not doing it. You're carding away from it and you're dancing around trying to keep your voter base happy with these statements rather than make a big decision. I think it's a moment for taking tough decisions, even on to say, wow, any chance you can make one? Is there? You just haven't been making any. You've been guinea pigging the mainland, you've been guinea pigging down south, you've been guinea pigging us before you're making any decision. I'm waiting to see what the comments are like in the comment sections and the Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds and the Belfast Tribes feeds, which are not flattering to say the least. And the hundreds and hundreds of comments seem to be that most people are against this, vaccinated or not. If it will either be a decision to have further restrictions, further lockdowns, or I don't think we can go anywhere near that. Well, it seems like, again, you've been babying and mothering us for the lockdowns that you're saying you don't want to happen. Or it will have to be vaccine passports for people going into pubs, restaurants, and gyms. And gyms, he's saying, people should be going to gyms. You should be encouraging people to go into gyms. The £100 vouchers you're talking about should be access to gyms. It should be access to healthy food. That should be it. You should be encouraging people to get fit and healthy. Because if there's one thing that the statistics has showed us is one of the main comorbidities from having serious illness or passing away due to COVID is obesity. So the biggest push that we could ever imagine should be around people going to gyms, but you're just lambasting them with pubs and restaurants for whatever reason. I don't know. And he also finishes his statement by, or whatever is advised by the medical professionals. Well, they haven't said that they're going for COVID passports, although we all know that it's down the line and it's been coming. Or is that just a tinfoil hat? Whereas again, or the spoiler alerters that we're calling them now. So if they haven't said that they're in agreement, why are you going to head out on a limb and saying that it should be compulsory whenever they haven't said it, and trying to lambast gyms and along with it as well? Again, it's ludicrous. It's madness. So it is. And to be just going ahead and firing gyms in there, what a disgrace. And if anybody out there thinks that it's just them industries that it's going to be hit, you're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. This is the way of mandating it through every business. Because if it's mandated in a pub and a restaurant, then that's the staff also that has to be mandated to be vaccinated. And what's to stop it from getting into any other line of work? Just take a look at Australia at the minute with the construction industry. They're vaccinated, mandating vaccines there. But this is the way of persuading you. If you want to go to a pub or a restaurant, then you're going to have to get vaccinated. Well, that's going to filter through every industry. It has to. Because why should you be in a job that doesn't mandate being vaccinated, but you're going to be asked to have it for a cup of coffee, or a pint or a burger? But do you think your work's not going to mandate it? Whatever profession you're working in, you honestly think that this is not going to filter down to it? You think it's just going to stick around till health service or people that's working in the hospitality industry? If you think that, you are not paying attention. He added, we can no longer pretend this virus is gone. We're putting more and more pressure onto the health service. The health service been under pressure for so long. We're going to ensure the A&Es are being closed and cancer surgeries are being cancelled. And again, it's clever what he's doing with the A&Es and cancer surgeries, because these are the ones that are most priority. But when do we let doctors, nurses and hospitals decide what to prioritise, who they can treat and when they can treat them? Especially with something that's now proved that data, and I'm going to be safe from the statistics and say 97% survival rate when we do know it's higher. Why is something now 2 years down the line being proved to have such a high success rate of recovery and people not dying? Are we getting till pick and choose that who's going to get treated and who's going to get diagnosed? But you're using them to try and use them. People turn against people to say, oh, I can't get treatment because you're unvaccinated, which is just a downright disgrace. And even with all of that, we still end up in a situation where we have to have further lockdowns. 2 years down here and you're telling me we're having trained more nurses, more doctors, we're having bought more beds for people to deal with an ICU. That's what you're telling me. The people that are paid to take forward-thinking decisions, the think tankers, haven't invested money in doctors, nurses and beds when we've been printing money for furlough schemes, people that's unemployed, golf clubs, yada yada yada. You're telling me the people that are paid at the house stations still think what might be further down the line? How could we be best prepared to haven't bothered investing in doctors, nurses and even beds? Give me a break. Do me a favour, seriously. Mr. Eastwood says vaccine passports have worked well in the Republic. He said the South now has the highest vaccination rates anywhere in Europe because they did this very same thing. Well, let's have a look at that, because they're due to lift their COVID passport restrictions on the 22nd of October, which is their indicative date, and they've left that open that it could possibly change, but let's take that as gospel. They're going to open on the 22nd of October. I would suggest that that's a very strategic date, because at the minute a lot of people are sitting outside the restaurants and the pubs because they're unvaccinated, which means people that are vaccinated, that are friends, are able to sit outside with them, so they don't have to make that moral judgment of losing a friend, a work colleague, or upsetting somebody in their family because they're vaccinated and they can go in but they have to go in without their unvaccinated friend, family, or work colleague. So it's convenient the minute that they can sit outside, but come 22nd of October, the weather's going to take a massive change for the worse, which means everybody's got to go inside. So you're going to lose half your business because people that are not vaccinated are sitting outside, but they're not going to be there coming in the doors, because if they choose not to get vaccinated by now, they're not going to. So they're going to lose half their business. Then they might lose another part of their business from the vaccinated, because maybe and hopefully then people with any morals or dignity about themselves won't go in, because they're going to have to leave again their friend, their family, or their work colleague at home because they can't leave them outside this time, and that's going to create factions. So I would suggest that that's a clever indicative date of why they're going to lift that passport restriction, because Halloween, everybody was out in Halloween dressed up, functions, Christmas functions, do's, and that's a mingling of people, friends, family. You're going to lose a lot of business again, and that's where maybe Mr. Eastwood sees the trouble coming down the line with his wife's establishment and the rest of the industry. But he wants to create a safe space for just the vaccinated, because people that are vaccinated that should feel safe aren't coming out at the minute because they don't feel safe, which is also one of the stupidest things you could ever hear, because they're mingling with people on a regular basis, work, outside, concerts, restaurants are already going to them. If you don't feel safe by now, I don't know what's going to make you feel safe. So I would say down south is a very clever date, and this is why at the minute the hospitality here is in a panic mode, and Mr. Eastwood knows it. So does the other politicians, which is why they're playing defence to their voter base and also the hospitality industry, because that's where a big part of their voter base is the middle class, people that own businesses. In response to Hospital Ulster arguing that the vaccine passports would be blackmail, and fair play to them is well done, Mr. Eastwood said Northern Ireland was now experiencing a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and that's the most disgraceful thing you could ever say. Most disgraceful thing you ever say. But as I already showed you in that article, the hospitality seems didn't even speak to him about it, and they're not calling for passports because they know it's going to hit their industry bad, especially at this time of the year, because it's come to the bad weather, and if there's so much percent not be vaccinated, they're not going to get vaccinated now, they're not getting in, and it's coming up to the time when there's work dues, Christmas dues, Halloween nights, people getting dressed up and going out, so they're going to lose a massive part of their footfall through the door, no doubt about it. Anyone can see it. If you can't see that, you're not paying attention, and they're playing with our lives with this. Where am I? The pandemic of the unvaccinated. What a disgrace. What a shameful thing to say. According to, is it Gordon Lyons? No, that's not other guy. Fry. Where's the guy? Lyons. Yeah. Who the Common Minister does not think a vaccine certificate. So good headline. No longer in space to justify the vaccine passport Lyons. Good name. All the politicians' names should end in somebody Lyons, because that's all they do is lying. But the warden does not think. You focus on that. Does not think. Doesn't say shouldn't, isn't, not voting for it, or is. Does not think. So it's a back door, leaving himself open. Anyway, yeah, or I'm not convinced that it's the right policy, but he's not saying it isn't the right policy. He's leaving it open. Again, test the truth for their headline. Go down and check it. Anyway, the part I want to point out is about the vaccination. We've almost got 90% of our adult population vaccinated, and you are now seeing the impact that it's having on the rate of transmission and hospitalizations as well. So he's leading you to believe that we're almost at 90% of adult population vaccinated, and it's having a good effect on the rate of transmission and hospitalisation. So which one is it? Here you have somebody from the DUP saying that, and Colin Eastwood from the SDLP saying that it's not. But if you're at 90% of adult, how could it be a pandemic of the vaccinated? You telling me that 10% of the country is running about spreading coronaviruses to people? Is that what you're saying to me? That's what you're expecting people to believe? And any rational person believing that, again, you're not paying attention. If 90% of the population, or the adult population, is vaccinated, how many people do you honestly think has had coronavirus? How many people? and has natural immunity. It's only 10%. Are you saying some of them people, okay, let's work, some of them people that have had natural immunity decided to get the vaccine when they shouldn't have because they've already got natural immunity, but that's okay. But you're telling me just these 10% of adults left are completely unvaccinated, haven't had COVID, so don't have antibodies, and it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, which is ludicrous because you're saying the highest percentage of people that actually hasn't taken is young people. So what do you mean young people? Young adults? What age range is that? What age range is that? Because is it 16 to 18, 18 to 20? What are you classing as young adult? But if it was just the young people, why are you calling it a pandemic of the unvaccinated? Why are you able to stereotype unvaccinated people and discriminate against people that have made a choice not to get unvaccinated rather than saying it's a pandemic of the young people? Why are you not saying that? Would that be too much of discrimination? Because you need the young people on side? Because realistically, they're the people that are going out, and so they should be. The young people are the ones that's keeping the bars, the restaurants, and the hospitality industry going. They're the people that's going out in mass numbers. That's who's keeping you afloat. So he doesn't want to upset them anymore. And you've already had Project Fear on them and tell push the numbers up of vaccination or Project Bravery. So again, what a lie. What a shameful statement for him to say. And he should have ruined his political career if he hadn't already. Most of these political parties should have ruined their voter base. Really should have. Where we go again. We know it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's a lie. It's not. We know that. It's a lie. It's not. It's very clear from the figures. No, it's not actually. It's very clear from the figures that it's nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. Your figures don't add up. And the statistics and data that you choose to bring out on a specific date and then hide away and don't give us any information is ridiculous. The Freedom of Information Acts that people are requesting are vague, very grey, or watered down. I know many pubs that have had to close because they couldn't get staff. The staff are having to isolate. People were getting sick. Given the number of young people who are working in that field, we now know the numbers are lost among young people. We need to get them vaccinated. So he's contradicting himself. Which one is it? It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, or the numbers are lost among young people who aren't vaccinated. We need to get them vaccinated. So why are you calling it a pandemic of the unvaccinated if you're saying it's young people that are unvaccinated and 90% of adults are vaccinated? It just doesn't add up. But that's normal. It's normal now. And let's address. I know many of the pubs that have had to close because they couldn't get staff. The staff were having to isolate. People were getting sick. Well, a lot of people were having to isolate because of the contact nonsense. Because you were in some sort of contact. You were calling it close contact. Or to get pinged by the app. Which was crippling all sorts of businesses. But let me also address the pubs that are getting and the restaurants that are getting it tough. Because like I said, it's young people that's keeping them afloat, but they can't afford to be going out every night. So they can't, because their hours have been hit. Whatever part-time job they did work because they're at university. Their numbers have been hit because pubs, clubs, restaurants are not open in the exact same time frame. They're probably working on 75, maybe less percent of their usual opening times. So normally when you would have had 30 or 40 hours a week, now they're only offering 10, 15, and it's not a secure job. So because of the constant lockdowns and the uncertainty of it, so young people are not taking a risk of going in. Plus, from my own experience, the process of being served, the length of time it takes to get served, it's unbelievable. I've had two experiences in the same pub. Lavery's one of my favourite pubs. Great pub, staff are fantastic. Not saying a bad word about them whatsoever. But during the Euros, I went down with my three boys, watched the match. In 2 hours, we were only able to get served 2 pints each. 2 pints. So normally we would have had 5 pints. So there you're losing out on at least 12 pints, which is a lot of money if you multiply that by how many people's in the bar through a football match. So I had 1 pint per hour to watch the football match because of the QR code, the table service. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. So they lost out on a lot of money just from that experience. I went down a few weeks ago, was heading out with a partner. We went down to have a few pints in Lavery's before we went down. There was a guy in front of us. The doorman asked us, had we had a table book? Said no. The guy in front said he did. Took him in, was no problem. But they came, brought us in, and while they were asking us if we have a table book was bemusing because the whole place was empty. It was completely empty. 7 o'clock. Place was empty. The guy that booked the table was sitting in the corner. They went and seated us down to the table next to him. Could have seated us anywhere, but I'm sure that guy was probably, I booked the table so I can get my own time and space, but put us down beside us, and that was no problem. But in that process of us having a couple of beers in there, the staff member led us to their table, a different staff member took the order, a different staff member brought the drink, a different staff member took the money, and a different staff member collected the empties. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different staff members who I can't fault. Service was brilliant, polite, really good service, very tentative, had a couple of good conversations with them and stuff. But the place was empty. There was more than 5 staff members on the boat, but 5 different staff members served us to keep everybody busy and keep everybody doing something. And they were only opening maybe 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Place was empty. So if you're not selling enough pints and you still got the same staff member with their own reduced hours, and you're not open until the same times as you normally are, then it's starting to get panic stations, because the furlough scheme is just about to come to the end of the month. So this is why there's a big panic. It's a massive panic by businesses in the hospitality. Massive. And as I say, the conflict of interest for Mr. Eastwood is his partner runs 2 pubs down in Derry. So they're going to be panicking because they've got the same amount of staff that they've been able to keep on because the furlough scheme's been helping them take over. But they're not selling enough pies and burgers and pints, or people aren't staying over, and that's going to take a massive hit, because if you've got the same amount of staff, you're not selling enough product, and you're having to pay people full-time wages, there's going to be massive redundancies. Massive redundancies. And that's why the hospitality industry is in panic mode like they've never been before. Because if they're not getting any furlough to keep their staff up, they're not selling enough produce and product, people are going to have to be paid off. And they're not under any guarantee to get furlough again if you go into lockdown. But some of them are praying for it, because that's the only way they could survive. If they bring in COVID passports for October and November and December, as I was explained before, people aren't going to be going to the pubs and the restaurants because they can't sit outside. And there's more than 10% of these people that you're saying is unvaccinated are not going to be getting in, and then they have the moral dilemma. Am I going to go into that pub and leave my friend at home? Am I going to go into that restaurant and leave my partner at home? Well, I can't go out to the work colleague Christmas Day or Halloween Day because everybody's not vaccinated. That's what you're going to face. So they're not stupid. If you're not paying attention to this, you're not switched on. That's the big push on this. They're not selling enough produce, they're not opening enough hours, they've got the same amount of staff, the furlough scheme's been carrying the load for them, and they're not making as much money. And if you bring in a COVID passport, they're going to be hit. And if people that are already stuck to their guns with regards to these restrictions would have had no problem with this whatsoever. None. And I mean, businesses should have been just opening themselves anyway, because who the hell did these people think they are to tell you you're not essential? Who the hell decided that you're not essential? You can't be responsible for the amount of people coming in and out your pubs, clubs and restaurants, and that you can't micromanage space and ventilation. And we all seen you innovating with outdoor spaces for people. It was fantastic to see you innovating, but you're still telling you're not essential, or you're not responsible enough to look after your environment in a safe environment and provide an experience for people without asking them for their papers. And now, like I say, if they were to bring this in, it's going to cripple the industry, and they see that because the furlough scheme is just about to come to an end. So the proverbial is about to hit the fan, because there's going to be massive redundancies. And also, if they bring the COVID passports in, people are going to leave their jobs. They know that. That's the risk they're willing to take. So there's many pubs and clubs that have had to close. There's going to be many more pubs and clubs have to close if you even think about bringing this in, which I think they are, no matter what. And it's a contradiction to what you're saying about it's the young people. Numbers are the lowest. We need to get them vaccinated when it's 90% adults are. I don't know what your age range is for the young people, but when I see that, surprise, that boosters are coming down the line, which, again, if you'd have paid attention, over a month ago I brought you that news. which I find fascinating because people are still just getting their first one, which is mind-boggling to me because the people who already got two are now being advised they'll get boosters. So you haven't even had your first, you know you're getting a second and you're definitely going to be taking a third. I'm asking the question. I'm not saying it's fact, but I'm asking the question. Is that saying that the immunity isn't as what they thought it would be? Isn't as long as they thought it would be? I'm asking the questions that because within this 6 month period you're being asked to take a booster 68 months. But if he's using the terminology, we know the numbers are lost among young people, okay? So we don't know the age range. It doesn't say young people. It's the terminology again. But if it's only 10%, because 90% adults, if it's just the young people are not going to be in. If it's younger than that, young people are not going to be in pubs, restaurants, clubs. They'll be in restaurants maybe with their parents and stuff, but they're not going to be going to pubs and clubs. So it can't be the 10% that's left for the over 12s or the 12s and 15s that they're about to start rolling out, and the boosters for the over 50s. I want to be a bit off, but still on target. Want to be a bit off, but it just, again, the numbers don't add up where he's saying young people, because if it's the younger people, the 12 to 15s, well, they're not. You don't need to bring in COVID passports because 90% of the adults already are, and the 10% that aren't are either young people are 16 to 18, and the other ones 12 to 15 are not going to be going to pubs, clubs and restaurants. Let's move on. The MP also said COVID jobs should be compulsory for care home workers. He said if an elderly relative living in a care home, I'd be very concerned about their health and COVID-19, and I would want to ensure that everybody working in that care home is vaccinated. Again, it's disgrace. I'm going to finish this whole part of the article before I address it. Asked if nurses and other healthcare workers should have compulsory vaccines, he said, I do not understand why nurses would not be getting vaccinated. In any normal time, we would never be supported. We would never be supporting this, but this is not a normal time. You have to stop the spread of the virus. We have to recognise, and this is where it completely contradicts what he's been saying the whole time, we have to recognise that this is the nurses and doctors and porters in the hospitals that have got us through all of this. They need protected. Let's read that again. We have to recognise that it is the nurses and doctors and porters in hospitals that have got us through all of this. Yes, that's right, Mr. Eastwood, you clown. That's right. For a year and a half when there was no vaccine and barely PPE, and people couldn't stay with their families, and the anxiety levels were through the roof, and they put themselves in harm's way, and they got us through it without no vaccine. And you were clapping them on Thursday night, and you were singing their plaudits because it was good headlines for you, and you were good to be seen that you and your party was supporting them. Now you've turned your back on them because you're kidding yourself if you think the percentage of the rate of people within the hospital is as high as what people are telling you to be that are vaccinated. You're kidding yourself. You're lying. You have to be lying. And you can tell by the comments on your Twitter, your Facebook, on the Belfast Tribe and the BBC's comments. They got you through it. And that's why it's a disgrace what you're saying, because let's dissect what he's saying. Let's dissect it and talk about the real colored conversation that nobody else is having. And what he's saying there is, when you were working all them times, doctors, nurses, care home workers, when you were working all that time, there was no vaccine. And you managed to keep everybody safe. Nobody died on your watch or because of you. But let's dissect that. That's what he's saying now. If you don't get vaccinated, you're potentially going to kill someone. And if you don't, you're being selfies. And then I'm asking the question, is he saying that's premeditated murder or manslaughter? Is that what he's saying? Because it wasn't whenever you weren't vaccinated and you were putting yourself in harm's way and staying away from your family and you kept everyone safe when they were sending COVID patients back into the care homes. Is he saying that if somebody did die previously before the vaccine, you ate it and abetted manslaughter or murder? If you don't get the vaccine now, Is he saying you're premeditating manslaughter or murder? Is that what he's saying? That's the reality. I think that the conversation should be had when somebody comes out with tripe like this, slander, discrimination, shaming. I think that's the conversation that nobody in the big boy room and the big girl room wants to put up their pants and have a conversation. You seriously saying that if somebody doesn't get vaccinated, that they're possibly going to be responsible for the death of somebody that they wholeheartedly take responsibility for caring and have done whenever you said there wasn't going to be a vaccine for 2 years, and they work without it for a year and a half under immense pressure, immense stress, anxiety that you wouldn't believe, that you wouldn't feel in your lifetime, and are not going to. But now that it's starting to hit the hospitality industry because furlough scheme's about to come, you're going to maybe feel the pinch in your house in income, because it's going to have a knock-on effect on your wife's business and industry. I think that's one of the cruxes and the roots of it. Has to be. If you don't sort it out and there's no furlough scheme and you bring in COVID passports, the industry's getting hit, which is going to have a knock-on effect on pubs and clubs and restaurants, which is having a knock-on effect in your pocket, in your household. And when you're saying about care home workers and nurses and stuff like that, they're not having the basic choice and freedom whenever they sacrificed everything, and I mean everything. Their sanctuary, the sacrifice, their sanity, sanctuary and sanity above any level that you can measure by. They sacrificed it, and you disgrace to come out and say things like this. An absolute disgrace. Because what you're saying is, in my book, we'll have to ask the question rather than say a statement of fact. I'm asking the question: is he saying to you, doctors, nurses, care home workers, that you're premeditating the death of somebody? And beforehand, if somebody died in that hospital or that care home, is he saying that you were responsibility for that? You have to take that responsibility. That may have been down till you, while he was patting you in the back. Disgraceful. And like I said at the start, they usually have us voting green and orange, and everybody that's in between, which is a massive population in this country, including myself, and vote green and orange. And then you're left to who can best represent you, and you're left for people like that or the Alliance Party. They do not represent us. None of them represent us. They're all hedging around their voter bases, and that's why the likes of Jeffrey Donaldson comes out and says he's going to keep an open mind. There you have it. Alliance Party, open mind. Michelle O'Neill, open mind. That's leaving the door open. They're not endorsing the passports, but they're having an open mind for it. For discrimination. That's what it is, plain and simple, discrimination. And with statements like that, he's throwing it out there, banishing about that it's a possibility of being premeditated manslaughter or murder, and possibly that's what it was beforehand if somebody died on your watch because you had no vaccine. That's the reality of it. That's exactly what he's saying, plain and simple, black and white. Disgrace, absolute shame. And that's why he's my serial week, and that's why nobody should be supporting him. Nobody should be supporting businesses at any stage that's asking for COVID passports or the lateral flows. You shouldn't be doing it. But this one in specific, any restaurant or pub or club gets on board with this, you should be boycotting it. That's what I'll be doing. Each to their own, but that's what I'll be doing. And when I've commented on things like this, people say, I'm sure they'll miss your £50, William, when you won't go and see the Kings of Leon, and I'm sure they'll miss your £20. Well, no, they won't. But if we do that in mass, and if I stand up for your rights and you stand up for mine, we'll be able to make a difference. We'll be able to come full circle here. If you don't, like I said, this is going to hit self-employed. And I know self-employed people, they're being told they need to get the vaccine passport because people don't want them calling till the house. Fact. As I say, look at the construction industry in Australia. They've been asked till mandated, and there's mass riots and unrest in Australia over it. If they bring this in, that means every person's working in a pub, a club, a restaurant, a hotel, you're going to be asked to get mandated vaccine. He wants healthcare workers right throughout that area covered. And then, as I say, if you think you're working in the Spar or the fruit and veg shop, everybody coming in there to your shop's now going to demand that you be vaccinated because they don't want to be touching anything because there's a chance of you being the unwise. Plus, if you're not in the industry yet that isn't getting mandated vaccination, well, how are you getting into the pub or the restaurant? You see what they're doing here? See how clever that is? You think, oh, I'm safe. I work in the building sites. I don't need to get vaccinated. Well, say they don't mandate that. But you still won't need to get vaccinated to get into a pub or a club or a restaurant. So you see how it's that clever way of blackmailing you? You need to wake up. You need to pay attention, and you need to push back against this in mass numbers. And I mean vaccinated and unvaccinated. I'm asking people to stand up and support each other in this. You cannot let this go on, because it's just having a massive knock-on effect. I say the only reason these people are panicking now is because the hospitality industry, if they don't go into a lockdown, I'll give you another story. I was talking to a butcher down around the coast. I'll not give his business or his name out, but he said to me, there's people don't want to come off furlough because it's been keeping them afloat. He told me there's a bookshop in his town and a hairdresser's in his town, a Turkish hair barbers, and he says, yeah, we all know books are dead. There's still a wee loyal following out there and good to see because we should be reading, but he says they're getting £800 a week, the Turkish barbers in the bookshop, on furlough. He says they don't earn anywhere near that a week. He says they're sitting in the house comfortably. And there's a lot of businesses like that. There's a lot of people that work in offices and stuff like that. They've got comfortable sitting in the house working from home, and businesses getting paid furlough far more than what their means was. That's a fact. A lot of people don't want to come back into work. A lot of people are praying to go into lockdown because their businesses will stay afloat, because once this furlough scheme, as I say, stops in the end of this week, they're in trouble because they're not selling enough buns, enough sausage rolls, enough beers. They're not selling enough rooms in hotels. It's fact. So they're going to have to pay their staff off. That staff's you. So it is. Because of these restrictions, because of these guidelines, because you've went along with it all, we'll do this one more thing and we'll get our freedoms back, and we'll do this one more thing, we'll get our freedoms back. It isn't happening, people. Come on. Let's start waking up. Let's push back on these politicians. Let's push back on any restaurant, pub, club and venues. Stop supporting these concerts and stuff. Honestly. You're just playing into their hands. For what? For a coffee, a beer, a night out. We all love a night out and a coffee and a beer and a bit of chit chat. But not at the expense of losing a friend, a family member or a work colleague. Friendships. You got it, as Mr. Jim Brewer said, you know, it's his morals. I have to stick to my morals. I have to stick to what I know is right. It's right and wrong. It's morally wrong to be outcasting your friends and your family and your work colleagues about vaccination status. Like I say, they've been keeping everybody safe for all this length of time without it. And now that they've chose to either have it or not, don't be shaming people. I mean, you're talking about mental health. It seems that mental health only works that in this, but if you're unvaccinated, nobody's worried about your mental health. The shame that's being pushed around healthcare workers, nurses, young people, doesn't seem to be worrying about anybody's mental health. It's okay to talk and let's be kind. That's one out the window. We're all in this together. That's one out the window. That's one out the window. Let's start sticking together, people. And there's a lot more of us out there than the media leads us to believe, social media leads us to believe. Again, you just have to look at the comments and articles and statements like this. There's a lot more of us out there. Let's get more Jim Brewers out there and businesses and push back against this. Let's get more people, ordinary people on the street, push against this. Let's start pushing our politicians, because if they think they're going to lose voters, and that's why they use open mind statements to keep us on side, because they've guinea pigged Colum Eastwood. They've guinea pigged him well. They've guinea pigged the South to see how this is all panned out with passports and restrictions. They've guinea pigged the mainland to see how it's all panned out. They've hid behind the guinea pigging. You better believe it. And now they're ready to make their move. Colum Eastwood's jumped first, and now they're guinea pigging him over the weekend. Me doing videos like this, anybody else coming out and talking that's allowed to talk freely, and to see what the reaction is. Well, let's show them what the reaction is. No, not be supporting it. And if it does come in, we need to really push back on it. Anyway, that's it for now. It's probably been way longer than it should have been. Go subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, like and share.